Welcome to Across the Pond, a podcast for leaders in market research to help them grow their insight agencies, with Steve Henke and Paul Griffiths.
So, hello again. I'm Paul Griffiths, and welcome to Across the Pond: How to Grow Your Insights Agencies.
And I'm Steve Henke with Harpeth Marketing. Today, we've got something a little different. Well, if you didn't see the last one, it's a little different. We're doing a hot seat Q&A today, and I'm on the hot seat. Paul's going to ask me questions, and I haven't seen these questions yet. It's going to be about getting the most out of your seller-doer team, but I haven't seen the questions. So, Paul, be gentle on me.
I will. And look, based on if any of you have heard the last episode, I think Steve gave me a fairly good ride on it. There wasn't any real zingers, so I might have one or two up my sleeve, but I think you're going to be fine. So,
just
as ever, we've got 2021. Yeah. We've got an edit function, and we've got about 20 minutes. So I'm going to crack straight on, Steve. So, right, managing the seller-doer. I want to start with a contextual question. So, from your perspective, what are the upsides and the downsides of the seller-doer model for market research and insight agencies?
Unfortunately, I believe there are more downsides than upsides.
Okay.
But there are certainly, let's start with the upsides. The upside of having, and let's define this as a seller-doer is a practitioner somewhere in an agency who also has sales responsibility. Could be a project manager, team lead, subject matter expert, but they also have selling responsibility. The upside is that they understand the research process. They do it. So if there are questions about the project designs, technologies, methodologies, they are absolutely positioned to answer those questions in a really good way. And that's a really good thing. Unfortunately, I think there's more downsides to it. And there's a couple of things related to that. One is there are no researchers that got into research to be sales rock stars. They got into it to be research rock stars. And a lot of them who have been tapped on the shoulder to go sell don't want to sell, don't like to sell, and more often than not don't know how to sell. So they're sort of under that pressure. The other part of it that's challenging, well, there's several. The other part of it is the time, right?
Okay.
They literally have a full-time job. So where do I find the time, the bandwidth to go do some sales?
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece of this, not to belabor the point, is I think to have effective sales in an organization, you need good salespeople and even better sales management. And I think that's missing from a lot of organizations because generally those that are in leadership positions in sales are just the leaders of the organization. And I've done the surveys. I've talked to firms. Nobody hires sales managers as pure sales managers. It's just, it's like there's a seller doer and there's a manager doer. And that's kind of the structure. So I think agencies do themselves a bit of a disservice by kind of clinging to this model. I understand the upsides to it, but I think there are downsides that folks need to be concerned about.
Okay. So it's not a great model, to be honest. I'm inclined to agree with you on that, but large portions of the industry maintain it. So
Absolutely.
On that basis, we come on to the kind of the meat of this. So you have a seller-doer function or approach to your agency's growth and your client engagement and your sales and your business development. From your perspective and what you've seen, what do you need to do if you are the owner of and leader of an agency to make this slightly imperfect solution work most effectively? What are kind of the two or three things that you think are absolutely like non-negotiable?
That's a really good question, Paul. There are a few things I'll kind of work down through the organization, right? I think if it's going to work, then sales has to be prioritized at some level in the organization. It has to have a seat at the table, if you will, that it's not just, that thing that we have to do over there because that's kind of what we have to do. But I mean, it's an integral part of an organization, and that's a structural thing. It's a cultural thing. So I think that's part of it. I think another piece of it is that, and this is a challenge, particularly for smaller organizations, right? The 25 and above can handle this, but if you're a five-man shop, this becomes a challenge. Is sales can't just be sales. It has to be sales and marketing. They have to work together. Sales supports marketing by sharing information back from the field, and marketing obviously can support sales, not just with collateral material and booths for the conference, but marketing can build awareness, build the brand, generate leads at scale that then the sales team can follow up on. So I've seen organizations trying to do just one or the other, and it never works. You need both. And then for the team, the seller-doers and the seller-doer manager, organizations need to invest as much in the development of that part of their sales job, or that part of their job, as they do the development of their research skills. Send them to classes, enroll them in workshops, subscribe to the right magazines, whatever it is, but help them get better at sales. If that's going to be part of their job, have them be as good at it as they can be.
And that all rings true. How much of this is done through modeling of behavior? So I would observe the agencies that I see that are quite good at this, even in the construct of a seller-doer, it's because the owners or leaders of those agencies are naturally predisposed and are good at that seller-doer thing. They're good at how much does that kind of modeling of behavior matter versus getting people to be trained or giving them support?
You know that's a really good question. What's interesting to me is, and I agree with you completely, there are particularly some of the smaller mid-sized organizations, they have a charismatic leader who has just grown the firm from nothing to what it is now on their shoulders. And unfortunately, what I don't see is that sort of transition of knowledge and skill set to the next generation, if you will, to the group. I just don't, not internally. I think they hire people that or anoint people to be their seller-doers, and then they, from what I've seen, they stay a little bit involved in selling. Then they also try and do management, which they're not skilled at. And so that sort of the leap of success from the ownership to the next level that's doing it, I don't see it happen very often.
Okay.
It's not moving down because it can't, right? It's the personality and the desire and the will and the skill set and all that from the owner. You can't transfer that stuff.
Okay.
So you can maybe try and find somebody that's wired like them, but that's hard. So as much as I'd like to see that happen, I think that's not going to happen. It can't. So some level of training has to happen. Training, development, whatever you want to call
it. And so the training and the development, because that gives hopefully people the confidence and the skills and some of the capabilities, and it sets some expectations. But what else do you need to do to manage a seller-doer? Are we talking here about, for instance, how would you amend their job spec or set objectives to try and get them, if you've given them the skills, but to kind of really embed it and get it to work?
No, good question. I think there's kind of two parts to that. One is within their job description, if you will. There needs to be two things. One is, what are the requirements of their job as relates to selling? But and this goes back to sort of making sales a priority within an organization, is management has to be willing to allow those people to have a certain percentage of their time dedicated to sales. It can't be, and when you find time, go do this. It has to be, you need to spend 20% of your time in sales related activities, or whatever that definition is. So I think from a job description perspective, that's important. And then sort of the management aspect of it. Do we have a sales plan that helps drive behavior? Do we have goals and expectations and tools to help them get there? I believe it should be a full-blown commitment to helping them achieve their sales goals. And, that also comes along perhaps with some sort of compensation plan, so that these seller-doers are rewarded for hitting those sales goals. But it's not just go sell something. It's the program has to be defined to give them the support that they need.
And that presumably requires some sort of process. So you've alluded to it, but if you were going into a mid-size agency and were being asked to manage a group of seller doers, what would be your process on a monthly basis to kind of help those guys? You've given the training, the support, and the rest of it, but what else would you set the job expectations? What else would you be doing? How would you manage them? What's the process by which you
and
can
there's some.
the work?
That's a good question. There's different ways to approach this. I think sort of from a structural perspective, and I think this is one to talk about, is how do you define who the seller doers are going to go after?
Okay.
So in some organizations, you will find seller doers sort of segregated by methodologies.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the quant guy and the qual guy, bad example, but that kind of thing. Or we've got the CPG guy and the tech guy and the financial services guy. And so they know who to focus on and they know what to focus on. I think that's part of the structure. And then I think there's got to be, for lack of a better term, sort of the detailed sales management stuff, which is, are they using a CRM? One of your favorite things.
Oh, yeah.
To track calls and activities. Are they creating a pipeline to manage their own activities and for their manager to manage them through the pipeline? Are they getting together with their sales? Do they have a weekly, bi-weekly sales meeting? Are they having weekly, bi-weekly one-on-one coaching calls with their sales manager? Man, there's a lot of things that have to happen to properly support a seller doer to be successful. It cannot be a hands-off kind of laissez-faire attitude. There's got to be somebody, I don't say holding their hand, but making sure they're doing the right things, holding them accountable, coaching them to do things better. And this may be the coaching part, may be where some of that owner who started it with the charisma and everything shares some of his knowledge in those one-on-one coaching sessions so that at least the seller doers are aware of what some of the things are that they can do.
Because that's the paradox, isn't it? You're quite rightly saying these people need management, they need support, they need coaching, they need a process, they need somebody to hold them accountable. But you've also said that the people that set the agency up, who maybe were more natural at that or kind of had a predisposition to it, they're not doing that. So do you think it requires specific, as well as, does it require a sales manager specifically? Do you think that's a role an agency should have or create?
In a perfect world, sure. It's easy for me to spend their money. But I would like to see that at least the function of sales management is assigned to somebody who, like a seller doer, at least allocates X% of their time to doing that thing, to managing, running the sales meetings, doing the one-on-one coaching calls, listening in on calls to help for improvement, to setting the appropriate sales goals for the quarter or the coming year, all of those things, to helping lay out key account activation plans, as you like to call them.
I like it.
I think that yes, the seller doer is responsible, but the sales manager or the person with sales management responsibilities has to help them do that to maximum impact.
Okay. And look, and for what it's worth, I recognize that it's kind of almost the role that I used to fulfill in agencies when I was a commercial director. And, as a commercial director, that was part of my remit. Also, actually, interesting enough, sitting across sales and marketing to coordinate them, because actually, as you've already said, that's kind of an interesting, that's where there's a lot of value sits.
Yeah.
So that rings true. So I think you are saying, if you're going to make the seller doer work, you need to have somebody in the business that's kind of responsible for making it work. It can't just be seller doers seller doing.
It's interesting, Paul, just on an unrelated matter, I did a survey recently of about a dozen, I'll call them mid to large size firms, 100, 200, 250 employees.
Big.
One of the questions pretty good size. And so one of the questions was, do you have somebody responsible for sales management functions? Not a sales manager necessarily, but they have, and all of them said yes, somebody has that responsibility. So clearly, as the firms get larger, they understand they need that responsibility. The next question was, did any of these people come to you with sales management experience? None. Zero. So again, I think that's part of the challenge, right? We want our senior leaders and research firms who got there through hard work and talent and time and everything else don't bring this skill set with them to the table. So to me, like I said earlier, I think you want to be successful, good salespeople, even better sales management.
Right.
And that is a piece that is missing from our industry in most firms.
Okay. You've already alluded to it a little bit, but what are the kind of the KPIs, or what are the goals, or what are the objectives you think that you should be setting seller doers to try and keep them on the path of righteousness to seller doing?
That's an interesting question. I'll speak with forked tongue, right? I mean, the easy thing is that you say, okay, I need you to make 20 calls a week and send 50 emails and do 3 proposals. And yeah, I mean, you got to do that stuff. I had a sales manager when I first started at DuPont 1,000 years ago who said to me, you hit your sales goals, I don't care what you do. So, and I understand that mentality as well. So I think there's this sort of balance if you're managing seller doers of activity versus results. I think both have to be, both are important. But if you could boil it down to one thing to effectively manage your seller doers and kind of keep an eye on activity, maybe I wouldn't necessarily call it KPIs, is to have a fully flushed out sales pipeline.
Okay.
If you as a seller doer, you as the manager know who's in each stage of the sales process, what they're talking about, what next steps are, what's the probability of close, and you're on track to, based on that, to hit your sales goals, that's all I need to know.
Okay.
And if you're making 50 calls a week or 5 calls a week and it's getting you there, do I care? As long as we're going to hit or exceed our sales goals, that's everything I need to know is right there. Now, here's the thing. If they're not hitting their goals, if the pipeline isn't as full as it should be, or the conversion rates from one stage to the other look bad, whatever it is, then you go to the details. Okay, how many calls have you made? How many emails have you sent? How many leads did you generate this quarter? Whatever the numbers are that are at the foundation of that. But if not to oversimplify this, but if the pipeline is kept up and everybody's using that as sort of the guiding tool, I think you're going to be in good shape.
Mindful of time, I've got just one more question. You talked and alluded to the way that they're incentivized. What have you seen that's kind of interesting in the world of incentivization to try and get people, seller doers, to be more focused on the selling side of things?
Yeah, that's a good question. The predominant method is base plus some level of commission or incentive, right? There are still a handful that do salary only. And then when it comes time for their next salary review, they factor in, how they've done on the sales side of their job. I don't see, at least for seller doers, I don't see any commission only jobs. And I hope that never happens. But I think there is, within the creating a compensation for seller doers, I think there's 2 reasons you do it. One is to reward the seller doer for doing a good job.
Yeah.
But the other, as management, is to make sure that you are driving the behavior you want from your seller doers. So the easy bad example would be, all right, we want to break into the financial services space this year.
Yeah.
I'll give you a 5% commission on everybody that you sell, but I'll give you a 10% commission on anybody in financial services.
Okay.
Where are they going to focus? Well, maybe they'll spend a little extra time with financial services because that's a strategic imperative. But I think it is important to have a plan that rewards that behavior because you want more of that behavior, right? And whether it's divided between existing and new business, you can get into the details of that. Yeah. But yeah, I'm in favor of some sort of compensation plan that rewards successful selling behavior.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's very, very sensible. Steve, we've come to the end of our time. Look, well done. That was, I hope your hot seat has not been too hot.
I sincerely appreciate you taking it easy on me, Paul. It's an important topic. So the more that we can help the marketplace understand what that's like and manage it and treat it better, I think the more successful all firms are going to be.
And on that note, I think that's your drop the mic moment. Thank you very much, Steve, as ever, for your wisdom and your wit and your experience and your intelligence. It's always a pleasure just picking your brains and listening to you talk and opine. It's a real privilege. So thank you very much. I hope our listeners have enjoyed this hot seat episode. I think next time we're reverting back to more of the normal stuff of me and Steve just poking fun at each other and
mercifully so, Paul. Come on.
Absolutely. So, but for now, thank you very much, Steve, and thank you, listener.
Right back at you. Thank you, Paul. Enjoyed it. Thanks for taking it easy on me, and for everybody else that sat in. Appreciate you listening. We'll see you on the next podcast.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching and listening to Across the Pond. Get in touch with Paul at clientadvocates.co.uk and Steve at harpethmarketing.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.